evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night. For once, my microphone is not on mute like it was the other time. I'm Chris. This is Mark. We're asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? Mark, what's going on with you?
I'm pretty pleased that I didn't list to Chris Sutton's FPL thoughts for this week, and I did captain Erling Haaland. There you go.
Me too. And I'm shit at that whole thing. And I think I just left it on, to be honest with you. I kind of left it on from previous weeks. But he was, to be fair to Haaland, just before we even get into Newcastle, people were giving him shit saying it was the easiest hat-trick. I mean, the Liverpool fans were pretty fucking desperate. So they started to pull out snippets of Luis Suarez's ridiculous hat-trick against was Norwich, when he scored like 3 of the best goals you'll ever see in your life. And they were saying like, oh, Suarez had to do it the hard way. And you thought, really? Like, the guy's just scored 25 goals this season already, and you're giving him shit. Is there any need?
Yeah. When the Golden Boot last season scores 20, was it 22? And he's already beaten it. And we're in fucking January.
He's a robot, man. He's an absolute fucking robot. But hey, fair play to him. He may be a robot, but he's not Alexander Isak, so fuck him. We're gonna get stuck into all things Newcastle in a minute, talk about what's going on. Just before we do, a little gentle reminder, if you're new to the channel, you just check us out for the first time. Glad to have you on board. Click that subscribe button, come and join us. We've got loads of room for you. We're on just under 2,400, so you might be able to push us over the edge, which would be brilliant. And we're live, as always. Jump in the comments, as a couple of the regulars have done. We've got Rogers in the house, even to you, Roger. And Gibbo is here as well. You'd be happy that my microphone is working for once, mate. Well, I say for once. I don't normally do that. I just dropped the bollock on the last video. But so we're going to get stuck in there, Mark. Just the first topic, really, I suppose, to go over all ground is a bit of a frustrating game against Palace, I think, mate. It's safe to say. Cracking for Palace. I mean, they got 2 draws against 2 top 4 sides, really. Over the last week, so great effort for them. Going to get stuck into Vieira's comments a little bit in a minute because I wasn't very impressed with them. But just the game as a whole, mate, we put points dropped. Do you think that's the case? Points dropped rather than points gained?
Yeah, probably. It's a tough place to go. It isn't. They're not the excuse me. They're not the easiest side to play against. But when you've been in the form that Newcastle have been in, you look at that game and you think they're what, 12th in the league. They've not scored an awful lot of goals. That yes, they've not been, conceding ridiculous numbers. You've dominated possession then in the game. You've dominated in terms of shots on target. I think the XG wasn't particularly high despite the number of shots that were there. But you come away disappointed that you haven't taken 3 points, because that you look at those games now and go, there's drop points against Leeds. There's a 0-0 against Leeds, 0-0 against Palace. Fair enough, the 0-0 against Arsenal. You're not going to be disappointed going to Arsenal and getting a draw. But I sort of get why some doubts have sort of crept in, but at the same time, I do think, you need to kind of just realize where you still are in the league and that this will happen. It's still a process. It's still going to take a little bit of time. So a 0-0 at Palace isn't a ridiculously poor result. It's just frustrating again.
Yeah, I mean, Roger's saying there again, plenty of chances created, obviously not enough converted. That'll happen again soon. Isak, he's got in brackets, definitely. I mean, we'll talk about Isak a bit more in a minute. But yeah, I mean, obviously Wilson, we'll get stuck into Wilson too. We had a couple of chances, didn't quite look is Wilson best, or is normal Wilson? I think, going to the World Cup, as much as we all clamoured for him to be there, it's probably not done him any favours, which I know we're going to cover off in a minute. But I mean, overall, we were definitely the more dominant side. We had more of the ball. We played very well. I think we nullified their star players. Wilfred Zaha was very quiet, as well as having the shittest haircut in the entire Premier League. It looked like I think I said in the review, it looked like one of them things in Alien that jump on your face and lay the fucking eggs in your stomach. Looked a little bit like that, to be fair. But he was poor. I thought Eze was poor as well. We kept them quiet. So yeah, I think generally the game plan worked quite well. And if we're taking one of them chances, we could have went away with 3 points. But we'll get stuck into Mr. Pope in a minute. World-class save, though, Mark, on that one, though, when we needed him. I mean, he was half asleep the whole game reading the newspaper. To pull that one off was an absolute belter, wasn't it?
Honestly, he just to have that level of concentration, to to have done very, very little all game and to still be alert enough. And I know it's his job. It almost sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but to be alert enough to have the reflexes to pull off that save from that distance, it was phenomenal. It was an unbelievable save, and rightly sits there as probably save of the season, because there's almost the point where you go, he had no right, because of how hard it was hitting, how close it was. He had to react so quickly. It's an unbelievable save. It's just, you just have to go, fuck, that's just
superb.
Because you are witnessing just a sensational goalkeeper, and we go back to when they signed him, 10 million. What an absolute bargain.
Absolute snip, but he's not very good with his feet, according to the old farts on Soccer Saturday. But less said about those Waziks, the better, mate. But a couple of great comments here about Zaha's hair. Howser Bacon said Zaha should have got a yellow card just for that haircut. Ian says if Zaha was blue, he could have been an extra on Avatar, the fucking bell cheddar, which is superb. What a comment here, what a comment. And we're going to give Ash a shout. Ash is back. He's had a little sabbatical. Great to see Ash in the comments. He's already in with some mischievous comments. Zaha's heed looks like a golden idol for some shit knockoff Indiana Jones. It did actually look a bit like some kind of weird statuesque thing that Indy would have went looking for, Mark, didn't it?
It did. Can I just go back to that Independence Day reference from Ash there?
Yes, I think it might have been. Yes, mate. You're on the ball tonight. You're on the ball. Ash loves a movie reference, mate. So yeah, you're on the ball. If anyone hasn't checked out Ash's website, if he's still doing, is it the 13th Reel? Fantastic. He writes about movies all the time. So if you love your movies, go check Ash's shit. That was great. But yeah, I think number 3 on Roger's comment there. I think that was Mitchell, wasn't it? Who was the one who shoved Willock in the back? I think at St James's for the pen was the Palace number 3. I think you're scratching away. Look at your squad numbers there, Mark. Yes,
I'm just looking at the list to go. Yes, it was
on the sly. On the sly. Yeah, Ash says you're well done, mate. Well done. That's what I call a close encounter, Mark. Well done. So the new monkey was saying no keeper was good with his feet 15 years ago. It's only just become a recent thing. Do you know what? Joe Hart, the poor bloke just got absolutely binned off by Pep Guardiola because he couldn't play with his feet. Really great shot stopper, Mark. What Joe Hart, but he got fucking binned.
Yeah. I said, look, Nick Pope's no mug with his feet. He's not. He's not a Joe Hart in that respect. He can pass the ball. He's not up there with the likes of Edison and Allison and Pickford.
Who is though? They're better than our fucking centre halves. Them two with their feet, man.
In fact, yeah, they're exceptional. But what you get from Pope is probably the best goalkeeper in the Premier League in terms of
all-around
goalkeeping. Yeah,
actual all-around goalkeeper. 100%.
I don't think there's a better goalkeeper in the league. You can say there's an element of bias given what we talk about every week, but show me a better one. Emi Martinez, maybe, but again, he has those faults. There's an awful lot of shithousery goes on with him, but he does drop a little clanger now and again. But
and the fact he's insane, he's absolutely insane, even for goalkeepers. Martinez is a fucking couple of putters short of a golf bag, mate. There's no doubt about that. Mate.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to be crazy at the end of the day. He's case in point. But he's another level, an absolute another level. But, I think, to be fair to him now, he's won a World Cup, so what does he care?
Well, exactly. But we don't talk about him. He's not our goalkeeper. Fuck him. No. He's not the best goalkeeper in the world. Nick Pope is the best goalkeeper in the world. So we're going to talk about that man in a bit more. But yeah, so a frustrating day at the office, really, I think. I mean, Eddie Howe, was obviously full of praise to the lads. And it must be said, we haven't even touched on it, mate. That's a club record, 15 unbeaten games now. Eddie Howe is now had the most successful run of any British manager, I think, in the last 25 years. This century, which is fucking phenomenal. I mean, Newcastle United breaking records left, right, and centre. I mean, whatever happens this season, wherever we finish, I still think we've got a good chance of top 4. Still think we've got a good chance of getting a pot as well with the Carabao Cup, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what a season this is going to be for the club and for the manager, Mark, as well. I mean, we just got to pinch ourselves sometimes, as you say, to where we are from where we've been, which is just phenomenal, man.
Absolutely. I mean, we always go back to this where we were this time last season, and this was the start of just about the start of the run, wasn't it? This time last year, and it was just the journey from Bruce, and then out of that into the initial part of Eddie Howe when he was starting to get things done, and that turnaround from Cambridge onwards has just been sensational.
Yeah, absolutely. Ash is saying that, and it means that Pardew no longer holds that record. Thank God. I'm sick of people like Sky, bloody dragging Pardew out of the draw. My God. Just need to finish higher than fifth to erase that memory. Absolutely. Ian has said, how many goals has he cost us with average kicking? How many games has he won us with his amazing shot stop? And compare that across the league. Pope is number one in the Prem for me. Absolutely. And I don't disagree. I mean, I think you're bang on the money there as well. And Gibbo says more clean sheets than goals conceded, which we'll get stuck into in a minute.
On that point for me, Ian, as well, about how many goals he cost us with his average kicking. Look at the mistakes that some of those the great goalkeepers make. How many times are teams caught out by playing out from the back? Now, Newcastle nearly did that against Palace.
Yeah,
that save comes from Newcastle messing around with it at the back and trying to play it around when there probably wasn't the need to do that. And how many times have we seen Edison give the ball away or Alisson give the ball away needlessly? Pickford's done it. Jeez, I can't believe I got those two mixed up. Pickford's
one's got really little arms, Mark. One's got really long arms. That's a good way to tell them apart. Mate.
Yeah. Ramsdale's done it for Arsenal. They've all guilty of that. And I struggle to remember the time that Nick Pope has done that. Yes, he might have booted one out of play, but it doesn't immediately lead to Newcastle being under the cosh straight away and conceding an opportunity. And it wasn't his passing that led to that opportunity on Saturday. It was it a Joe Linton pass?
I think it was.
That sort of went astray. So it's that point is absolutely valid. And even now I would far rather have a great goalkeeper than somebody that can ping 40-yard passes in goal.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we've got players all around the park that can do that. As Roger alludes to, I'm just going to comment there. Roger alludes to that, the back five have got a chance to go 16th as well, unbeaten tomorrow, which we'll get stuck into at the end. The new monkey saying there, they laughed at us when we pointed how the man who got Bournemouth relegated. Now we are laughing as Lampard and Gerrard are sacked. I mean, to be fair, it just goes to show you these media darlings and these ex-former players don't always make good managers. Case in point, Shearer for us as well, great player, but was he a good manager? Ash is fuming that the game's on tomorrow night. Fuming. Not very happy at all. And just to tell Pope and Pickford apart, Mark, one has little arms as well as big teeth. So that is bang on. And Roger's just letting us know Spurs are still one up, which I think we saw before, Mr. Kane. Vincent says he hopes we smash them tomorrow. And Peter is saying, I've lost count of how many teams we've played and they've had no attempts on target. It's that defending from the front when out of position. Absolutely. And we're still doing that really, really well. I mean, I don't know how the rest of you watched the game at the weekend, but I had the misfortune of watching it on Sky Sports. And Mark can have a drink here because I'm about to ramp up the rant machine here. So I was sitting watching... Yeah, just have a little snooze. I was sitting watching Sky Sports, and it was a proper phone in a pundit type moment. So they had two of the dullest fuckers you ever meet in your life that could have sent an insomniac to sleep, and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and Kieron fucking Dyer, who decided to dress like a fucking pound shop James Bond live on Sky Sports with this ridiculous gear that he was wearing. And he was talking absolute fucking shite, was Kieron Dyer. I heard him on Talk Sport the other day when they said, who do you credit for Joe Linton's revival? And this fucking little ball bag had the audacity to say Steve Bruce, of all people, which shows me, number one, he knows fuck all about anything. I don't know what he ate in the jungle, whether he snorted coke off a camel's ball bag or something, but he's lost the fucking plot. He hasn't got a clue what he's talking about. And, Steve Bruce had nothing to do with Joe Linton's revival whatsoever. It was all Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe was the one who played in midfield, you stupid little spunk bubble. And he then turns around and says about Sven Botman, this was absolute perler. He turned around and said, I had no idea who Sven Botman was. Sorry, hang on a minute. You had no idea who Sven Botman was? He was playing for Lille in the Champions League, you fucking helmet. Your job as a football pundit is to understand players across Europe. But this kid was the most sought after young centre half in European football. Everybody who's anybody was after him. And this wanker said he didn't know who he was. And then, if you think it can't even get any worse with Kieron Dyer, he turns around and says that he could move on to a bigger club. No disrespect to Newcastle. He could move on to a club with more, I think he said more prestige, more legacy, more pedigree, right? Now, hang on a fucking minute, right? I know you want to say a bit about Dyer in a minute, so I will breathe, Mark, I promise, right? But this little prick, when he was at Newcastle United, the only successful thing that he did in Newcastle was Cheryl fucking Tweedy. That was about as much as he did well when he was in Newcastle, because he was fucking hit and miss on the pitch. Yes, he had moments when he was good. He spent most of the time on the treatment table, and he's probably most well known for fighting with his own teammate in the middle of a game and getting Sir Bobby Robson sacked. So, for God's sake, Sky Sports, do better. Go down the local boozer and get fucking Fat Barry, who's 6 pints in. He will do a better job being a pundit on a Newcastle United game than this little fucking shit weasel will do. Over to you, Mark. I will breathe.
How the hell do I follow that?
I did warn you.
How do I follow that? Genuinely, yeah. I mean, look, it's Gabby Agbonlahor-esque levels of genuine genius, isn't it? I mean, why on earth do you have somebody on like that? And genuinely, it can only be for the reaction. And I mean, I think one of the comments is in there about Hasselbank in there. Usually you have people that are connected with the club that are in there.
Yeah.
No idea why on earth Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank is in there unless they were just really stuck for anybody to be there. Kieron Dyer is just horrendous. I mean, we've seen in the last week now that it's just too... The comment about Botman, look, if you're not versed in European football, and I don't think he's versed in much at all, he might not have done. But to go out on Sky Sports and say that, yeah,
Ian's nailed it, mate.
And that's fine. But if you don't play that and you're not versed in, you don't watch French football or European football, and I've got to be honest, I think they've just dragged Kieron Dyer from under a rock. He's certainly been going for the new member of Thunderbirds. Unbelievably uncanny that resemblance.
Uncanny. What was he called again? What was that guy called again?
The Hood.
The Hood.
The Hood.
The Hood. The Hood in the helmet. What honestly, a duo they would make, mate.
But he's just, I don't know. I just we did a piece on this in our previous guys, didn't we, on the website about pundits and having to do better. And surely to God, the TV companies, the radio companies can do better than dragging out. And his the only qualification of being there is the fact that he's played for Newcastle. His hatred, I'm not sure there's hatred there. I just think his dislike for Newcastle.
He's got an axe to grind because he knows he failed there. He failed there.
Yeah.
He failed to live up to what he should have done. He should have gotten moved to Man United or something like that when he was at Newcastle. That's what he thinks. But he didn't, because he was an injury-prone little shithouse who went out of bar more than he did in fucking Barrack Road.
Yeah, but so did we.
Yeah, but we weren't getting paid fucking, was it 70, 80 grand a week or whatever to do that, mate? So,
but I come back to somebody made this point, I think, today. Look, Kieron Dyer is known for his time in Newcastle. Yes, he did well at Ipswich, and he played for England 30 something times, maybe 33 caps for England. Yeah. But he is most famous for playing for Newcastle. He should be absolutely grateful for the fact that Newcastle signed him, for Newcastle gave him the opportunity. He got into the England squad because he played for Newcastle, because he played under Bobby Robson. And I guess he won't. His reluctance to accept anything good for Newcastle, I guess, is the way that I'm going with that, is because Newcastle fans dislike him based on the fact of what he did when he was there, which is basically not an awful lot. He, other than crash his car, I think he crashed it into the swing bridge, didn't he?
into the actual was it the swing bridge into that big red rusty bastard. How the hell can you not see that?
Fucking miss it.
You know, no wonder he doesn't know who Botman is. He can't see a big rusty red metal bridge in front of his fucking two eyes, mate. So no wonder he can't understand who Sven Botman is.
But no, I'm fed. I'm really fed up when they roll out the same idiot. And to be fair, he's a new idiot, I guess, in this regard.
But they
roll out the same level of idiot, week in, week out, and you get absolutely nothing from them. And a lot so dull. They're so dull to listen to.
Those two are so boring collectively together. Like, fair play Jamie Redknapp, right? Who talks a lot of shit, but at least he's got a little bit of something about him, Jamie Redknapp. You know what I mean? He's got a little bit of charisma about him. These two together. I mean, I think to coin a phrase, said it sounds like Dyer has had a stroke. He fucking has a couple of strokes. There's no doubt about that, mate. He doesn't sound like in a good place, though, I must admit.
No, it's an odd one. I said to you instantly when I saw that, because I didn't see it live. I saw the aftermath. And
I sent you the video. Yeah.
And looked at it and went, and I've no idea. Is he on something? Is he struggling with something? Because
I don't know, mate.
His eye movement, his general mannerisms just didn't look normal. Is that
maybe the polar neck was too tight?
Cutting off circulation.
Showing circulation to his neck.
He didn't look at all right for a start. But he's just you have to have people on that are going to give you something out of it. There's no point in having people like that can't give you any sort of benefit to being there. And they just absolutely don't. And it's the same with the... Danny Murphy's a little bit better these days, but he's not great. When they used to trot out the likes of... I mean, even Niall Quinn, they would trot out for games and stuff, and he offered absolutely nothing other than complete bias against
bias towards
Merson's that level of incompetence. Bonlahor's that level of incompetence. They have to do better.
Even Villa fans think Gabby's a fucking idiot. That tells you a lot about him. Ian's a big fan of the Tweedy joke. Much respect. Thanks, Ian. And there's a great comment from Peter. You went to school with Cheryl. Was she fit in school, mate, as well? And tell her we said hello and we hope she subscribes as well. We do love Cheryl. It's a shame she shagged this fucking moron, but hey, you cannot have it all, Cheryl. You can't win all the time. So Mucky saying that Bowyer knocked on common sense. To be fair, I like Bowyer. Bowyer talks well about Newcastle, and I like the way Bowyer plays the game. Even Bellas, to be fair, Bellas has his moments. Certainly when Ashley was here, we said a couple of questionable things. But generally, Bellas talks well about, the fan base and the club and that. Genius has started to soften himself as well. I think he understands, that now we host the one show, he can't come across as an absolute fucking prick as well. So, he tends to try and talk a little bit, well about Newcastle in that respect. Ash is saying Fat Barry better lay off the sauce, mind. He can't drive that taxi under the influence. Absolutely. Maybe Dyer crashed his car. That's what it is. He's not very happy with him. Yes, Peter, it was a rant. Thank you so much. Sorry, Roger, beg your pardon. And Peter's a fan. Very funny. Sorry, guys, I'm getting mixed up. I think his glasses about the Specsavers. Ash is saying get given or Shearer. Well, it's funny because Adam in our chat obviously lives in America, as you all know. And Adam shared a picture of Big Al with Harper and Given, right? And I have a wealth of channels at my disposal without giving too much away. And I couldn't find that fucking channel, right? I flicked the channel. And do you know who I found? Michael fucking Owen, right? That was worse than Kieron Dyer. Worse. I had to go back to Kieron Dyer. And I thought, oh, Jesus Christ, I might as well just stay here. And thank God Eddie Howe came back on. My God, because that twat was just driving me up the wall, mate. None of Newcastle's back four world class, Kieron Dyer. Fucking. So we've got the right backs in the world FIFA player team of the year.
I'll give him credit. He said the Trippier purchase was a great bit of business. So we'll give him his dues on that one.
But none of the back four are world class. Sven Botman and Kieran Trippier. None of them are world class. What is he talking about, man? What is he talking about? Don't have him on again, Sky. What are you doing? Get me or Mark on. We'll offer you more than that. And I promise I won't swear maybe once or twice. Just bring your bleep machine. But
I don't believe you.
Honestly, well, I won't swear once or twice. Yeah, okay. Maybe 4 or 5 times. Ash is enjoying that. Peter's saying, why is Dyer's head as wide as his shoulders? I think he had shoulder pads on, mate, because he saw how big Jimmy Floyd was. And he said, get me some shoulder pads. Quick. To coin a phrase, the hood winker or the hood wanker. Very nice. I do like that. BT's in the house. Good to see BT. Kieron Dyer is a cunt. Pass it on. Love it, monkey. Just succinct, Mark. Succinct. You gotta love it.
Nice and put. I mean, that saves us 20 minutes, really.
Absolutely, mate. Just, let's get the monkey in the admin, mate. Absolutely class. Roger said he is fuck all vocal tone. I don't understand what he was even doing. It was just like a long fart and it's like a foghorn or something like that. It was a weird voice Kieron Dyer had.
Yeah, I think BT's hit one on there, and I didn't know this. So, in terms of his speech and stuff like that, that's fair enough.
Okay, fair enough.
I didn't
hold
know.
my hands up to that.
But that doesn't take away the fact that he knows absolutely nothing and was next to useless being as a pundit. So fair enough in terms of that. But he's still an idiot.
Yeah. It doesn't change the fact that did they remove his football knowledge when they took his fucking liver out? Possibly, who knows? Or they did something with it. So, the Tommy Dyer or Owen thoughts, Chris. Oh my God! If I got stuck in a lift with a pair, I'd open the door and climb up like Bruce Willis and Die Hard, mate. That's probably what I would do. Horrendous. God, if there was a gun with 2 bullets, I'd shoot myself twice. That's probably what I would do. The Weird Dale is saying slipping away now. The Spurs won tonight. Well, no, it's tightening up a little bit. Ian thinks that Jamie Redknapp being the best football analysis says it all for me. That's the quality of Sky's pundits, Mark. That Jamie Redknapp is. Can
we just go back to the Weird Deal with it slipping away now? Spurs won tonight. You're still 3 points clear of them with a game in hand. It's an interesting take. Yes, I guess they've won one game, but they've been so out of form under Conte recently. We'll see. I'm not so sure on that one.
Yeah, don't worry, man. We've got Bruno in the middle. Don't worry, he knows exactly what he does. We've got Joe Litton is in court Wednesday. Do you think he'll travel with the squad and play? Yeah, he probably will. I mean, he's a vital part of the squad. But we're going to look at the how we think we'll probably line up against Southampton towards the end of the episode, guys, and obviously we'll get your take as well. Or Thursday, as the monkey would say. We're racing each other for the button again then, Mark. Ashley said if you stuck in a lift with both of them, you'd open the lift and jump out.
I'd be doing a Bruce Willis. I'd be out the top. I'd be just getting me out.
No doubt, honestly. I think I would rather spend time with Hans Gruber than those two. I think, at least you'd have a bit of crack about them. Do you know what I mean? They're my detonators. But yeah, I suppose leaving this prick behind because that's where he belongs. Let's just hope we don't see him again on the TV. But it is Sky. Sky are full of fucking arseholes, especially when they call it in, especially when there's a big game the next day, Man United and Arsenal. They always save the best pundits for those games, don't they? But, maybe one day when we're kind of in City's position, they'll be salivating all over us like they have done over Manchester City over the last few seasons. But let's talk about something a bit more positive, Mark. I'm going to hand the reins over to you because I've ranted long enough about Kieron Dyer. So you wanted to just dive into a little bit of the facts about how brilliant Nick Pope has been, made keeper to keeper, didn't you?
Yeah, look, we've kind of done this a little bit before, but Nick Pope is just... He continues to show what an absolutely brilliant goalkeeper he is. I said it before. I do think he's genuinely the best goalkeeper in the league. In terms of his overall goalkeeping, not with his feet, I get that, but his overall goalkeeping, I think, is absolutely sensational. Yeah, just I agree with that. At times, the bias is there, but it's, on a I pulled up a couple of little stats for this, and in terms of that's his highlighted stats for the season. Now, this is pre the Spurs game tonight, so the stats on Bernd Leno are slightly out of date in terms of it doesn't include the game tonight. 1 goal, there'll be some saves and some shots against and all that kind of stuff. But you only have to look at this in terms of Nick Pope is top of the table in terms of goals against per 90 minutes, save percentage, clean sheet percentage, and he currently sits 4th in terms of goals saved. Now, again, that might have changed tonight. I don't know what the XG and stuff, the post-shot expected goals were for against Fulham tonight. But he sits 4th behind Leno, Arrizabalaga and Alisson. The one thing that stood out to me from that is just how poor Liverpool have been, is shown by their post-shot expected goals. 32.1 post-shot expected goals for Liverpool this season compared to Newcastle's 14.
Well,
I mean, that shows
that's
you
because Van Dijk's fucked, isn't it? Van Dijk is ruined this season, mate.
But again, that goes in to show you just how good Newcastle's defence have been this season. I mean, they conceded 11 goals in 20 games now, and it's just a phenomenal performance all round. But it's just that line of, he sits pretty much top in every measurable sort of stat there. And just, again, go back to what I said before, it's just a phenomenal bit of business to bring in a goalkeeper of that quality. And I know there were many questions about, do you need him? Is he a step up from Dubravka? Absolutely. I said at the time, I thought it was a huge, improvement on Dubravka coming in terms of his genuine goalkeeping ability, and he's just shown it.
Absolutely. That's a fair comment by Ash, especially if you're over 12. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. We'll probably get shut down for that one.
If you look at the tweet that I put out about the show earlier on, it was Pope, and I did use the Vatican's flag for it because it was the only thing I could find that went with it. So
you must be at least this high to ride this Pope. I'm only joking. That's terrible. I'm going off topic.
We might get taken off the air here.
No. We love the Pope. God bless you. I mean Nick Pope. So yeah, I mean it is fantastic having a keeper like that. It really is. I mean the keepers are an interesting one in the mock, isn't it? Because Karius has signed on. Just talking about the keepers while we're here. I was watching Craig Hope earlier on his video. I love Craig Hope's little walks through Gosforth Park he's doing. It's absolutely class, to be fair. I do enjoy them. And I always think if I had a selfie stick, I'd look like a right dick, but he seems to pull it off really well. But he was talking about Carl Darlow, and I reckon that Darlow won't be getting sold probably until like the 11th hour. But obviously with Karius agreeing to stay at the club, it's got to be one of these keepers has got to go. Dubravka's come back. Karius has signed on. Darlow's still there. I think Gillespie still carries the waters and makes the sandwiches for away trips, I think, doesn't he? But so one of these guys has got to go, mate, sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, you touched on Dubravka. Dubravka can't go unless he goes outside of Europe because he's now played in the Cup. He can't play for another European club this season because that would be 2 already.
Yeah.
So unless he was to follow Ronaldo potentially and go and play in Saudi, that's not going to happen. So yeah, I think Darlow's. It's going to be a case of when he goes, not if he goes, because you're not going to want to sit there with 5 goalkeepers on the book.
But it's Hull apparently is the word that's going around. Yeah. Anthony Gordon, just for Sean's bringing up there, I might as well just while we're sticking with transfers. So there's a lot of noise about Gordon. We did a rumour has it about Gordon, and I think that it was very split market. It's probably safe to say, isn't it? I mean, there's a player in there, but he seems to have a real unlikability about him. It's I don't know if it's because he looks like an evil version of Gareth from The Office, or a skinnier version of Claire Bolden with Joey Barton's attitude. But he's just insulting everybody tonight. I'm on a roll. So I just think that there is a player in there, and sometimes you can forget that just by the fact he acts like a bit of a shithouse. But it looks like the milk's turned sour for the kid at Everton, mate, big time. But they have just binned Super Frankie Lampard. So do you think he might stick around?
I guess it depends on who comes in now, but they're running. I guess for Everton, in terms of where they go from here, their squad isn't particularly great. They don't have a huge number of sellable assets that will bring in big money. Gordon is one of them. I think Pickford and Calvert-Lewin are the other ones that they could probably move on for significant fees. Maybe Yerry Mina being another. So they're going to want, if they're going to improve the squad overall, and they've got really nothing beyond the first team, the first team's not very good anyway, they might have to move somebody like Gordon on. And I know Chelsea are rumoured to be interested in it. Well, Chelsea are going to sign everybody, so I don't know what they've done.
Chelsea are signing you. I heard, mate, they're after a new stat man. They've put a £60 million bid in for you over 25 years.
What, if they can pay me 60 million quid, I'd happily go and work for them. Jesus Christ.
That's shocking. Edit that out.
But it's... but yeah, he is an odd player because you're absolutely right. There is a player in there. And I think he would absolutely bring something to the team. You've seen at times how good he can be in that Everton side. And So to put him in a side that isn't struggling, to put him in a side that isn't, is challenging the right end, and let him be creative, let him be free a little bit more, I think he would thrive in that. And he puts the work in as well. You look at his stats that we did the other day, and a lot of those high sort of percentile stats that we looked at were defensive numbers. So he does put the graft in. He's a lot like Miggy in that respect, in that he will work for the team, he will come back, he will help out. But he's got that spark at the other end as well. He's just not. It's just not been there this season because the teams around him has been utterly shit.
Absolutely. Ash is saying he could be the best player in the world, but there's no forgiving that rat face. He definitely has a face for the radio. There's no doubt about that. Roger said he'd take him. Eddie could make his fundamentals better. Evan, oh shit. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Peter is praying for Matthias. Is that Franca? Probably
Franca,
the young Brazilian who, yes, we love a Brazilian in Newcastle. Have you ever watched Geordie Show? So Ash is saying 120k a year, and he'll go and be some creative accountant.
I read that as 120 at first, like you said. I know he's clarified that since. I think you've undersold yourself there, mate.
£1.20, cheapest chips, mate. We'll buy him. Ian is saying there's so many better options at Gordon Shirley. He's half decent, but he's a proper knobber. Do you know what? It's an interesting one for me, Ian, as well, because I was just saying this to Mark off air before we come on. I'd rather pay the extra 10 and get Maddison for me. I really would. If we're going to pay 40 million quid, is what the rumour is for this kid, I'd rather pay 50 and get Maddison in. Much better player, and Ash, he's a handsome devil as well. So you'll like him, Ash, because he's got a better looking face. And he loves the darts.
Who was the kid that played for Man U back in the 90s? That
Chadwick.
Was similar sort of Luke Chadwick.
Yeah. He did a documentary, didn't he, about all the abuse he was getting for being an ugly bastard, which is a shame. It's a shame, like, because it's not nice.
It just struck when we're talking about his face. It just instantly reminded me of him, and he was a fairly decent player at one point as well. So
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm loving where Peter's going. Peter was going high. He's aiming for Diaby. Love a bit of that. Diaby would be good. I think that I think what we saw was 88 million, I think, that Leverkusen were talking about wanting for Diaby. That's big money in January. I'm not sure we'd stretch to that. Diaby could be one for the summer, I think, Peter. But we definitely need an attacker mark, don't we, with Chris Wood being let go. I mean, as much as I think I could go to the roadworks up the road and get a traffic code and do probably the same job as Chris would, just paint number 20 on the back and he's replaced. But we do need an attacker, mate, don't we? And I think Eddie Howe wants somebody with a little bit of movement, a little bit of something. Yeah. Flexibility can play across that front three. Yeah, everything that Chris Wood isn't. He wants mobility, flexibility, the ability to score a goal, to kick a ball forward, and to keep up with the play. So yeah,
I did laugh after your bit of a rant about him the other day, and when he played for Forest, and I thought, right, he started, played 75 minutes, didn't have a single shot.
Yeah.
What was it? Sam Surridge comes on within 8 minutes, scores. Yeah. And this, I get this whole argument. He did a job for Newcastle, but as a striker to have played, I think it's something like he scored 8 goals in 60 odd games.
Mate,
like across the last couple
anybody who makes Carl Court look like fucking Didier Drogba is shite, and that's what he was. He was shite. I don't buy this narrative of this slobber fest over Chris Wood. And I'm sure he's a fantastic guy, and kudos for his unbelievably attractive wife as well, by the way. So well done, Chris Wood. He obviously got something on target, but it wasn't shots at Newcastle because he was shite unless he got a penalty. So good luck at Forest, mate. I hope you don't come back because you're not very good, and I hope we get somebody better. Not wrong with that. That's just the way it is, isn't it? Really. So he doesn't owe me a fiver, Mark, as you try to allude to in our chat group. I don't hate Chris Wood. He doesn't owe me money or anything like that. I just didn't think he was very good, So I'll just being honest about that, mate. Being honest about that.
That's fair.
Well, exactly. But I suppose moving on to some other news, some of the discussion points is probably the best way to say it. A lot of people have talked about it. Our own Lee was getting a little bit upset with the Silver Fox. He doesn't like you slagging off Callum Wilson, but we're not going to slag off Callum Wilson. But we are going to say one thing, Mark. They're a little bit concerned because he doesn't quite look himself, does he? Does Callum? He looks a little bit off the pace. I mentioned at the start about the World Cup probably not doing him any favours, but you've had a little look into some of the goal scoring charts. Get ready, Ash. He's got another spreadsheet coming for you. This one's a smaller one. But you have been looking a little bit into some of the data behind Wilson, haven't you, mate, as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been an odd sort of season for him because there's been plenty of chances, but you're right. You go back to the World Cup, and I don't think it's done him any favors. And I think that was part of the sort of the comments from Eddie Howe, wasn't it? That he's come back. He's not been particularly well since he's come back. It hasn't done him any favors. And we said a couple of weeks ago, he just doesn't look right. He's not sharp. And he started to look a little bit sharper against Fulham for a bit. But he just doesn't look himself. He just doesn't look right. And some of the numbers for him are a little weird because he seems to have lost his effectiveness as well. So I will provide another little spreadsheet which will go down well with Ash. But that's his stats since his 2014-15 season in the Championship with Bournemouth. And the highlight bits at the top, you can see that shots on target percentage, shots per 90 and shots on target per 90 are all more than he's had in previous seasons for Newcastle. But his effectiveness, his conversion rate is down massively. His goals per shot on target is obviously down as a result, and his goals against his XG is down as well. And that particularly is the second lowest it's been, other than that one season at Bournemouth in 2019-20. So he's getting into position, he's getting chances, he's just not putting them away at the moment, and it's an odd thing to see because he's normally so clinical.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at that conversion sort of rate over the last two seasons to be around 25% is a really, really, really good record. And he's always there or thereabouts in terms of his XG. Those two seasons apart, and I don't have the stats in terms of that for 2016 and earlier because they don't exist for that period, or they certainly don't on FBref. But it just goes to show he's still putting the work in. He's still getting into positions, but he's just not been able to convert those chances recently. And I do think it's a lack of sharpness. I mean, that header against Palace, he should bury, but I just don't think he's not at that level. He
lacks that conviction behind it, like he used to have. He didn't even think about it. Ash is saying he looks frustrated, and he seems to be kind of locking him into a bit of a spiral. This is a great comment as well, just for you, Mark, from Tommy. Mark is like a TTR statue on steroids. That's high praise indeed. Yeah, Alex is a good lad. We've had him in the comments before, and we'd love him on the channel one day if he fancies jumping on, Alex, because he seems like I do
have a lot of time for what Alex does because he does put a lot of work into it. Thank you for that. I'll take that all day long.
If you two are ever on with me, I will feel like Tom Cruise in The Rain Man. I'll just be
sitting there. I was just going to say it would be like the Matrix, just code everywhere and all sorts.
I'll just be I'm listening to you guys going, definitely XG. That'll be pretty much it.
But the other thing I wanted to touch on as well, because a lot's been made about the length of time without a goal. So it's now eight games without a goal.
8 games, yeah. Everyone made a point of that.
Callum Wilson. But this isn't unusual for him. As great a striker as he is and how clinical he can be, he does go for long spells without a goal. In the 3 seasons at Newcastle, this is now the longest spell. In the first season in 2020-2021, it was 7 games. Last season, it was 6. His last season at Bournemouth, he went 13 games without a goal. And 2 seasons before that, it was 12 games without a goal. So he does have these little dry spells. And then he comes back and he'll score in bunches again. But it's just... You want him out of the slump, and I think one brings more. So if he gets one, I think you'll start to see the positive, that confidence will come back in front of goal. But it's just, do you leave? I think that this comes on to then tomorrow. Do you leave him in the firing line tomorrow? Do you play him, or do you go with the new boy? Do you go with Isaac up front to give him a little bit of a rest? Although you've then got a week until the second leg. So is that then the question to give him that time and then bring him back? Maybe depending on what the result is tomorrow, you bring him back for the second leg, ready to go. He's not had a game in a week and a half, and he's firing.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Tiger there. I think we do need some quality players in the next 9 days. I think certainly in attack and midfield, and he does say we just don't have the players who are clinical enough up front. We've got Andrew is saying that he totally thinks we should rest him a bit longer. Hope he starts hitting the net again. I mean, I think BT's backing up what you said as well about Eddie Howe saying he was struggling, from the World Cup and very limited training time. Now, I heard a story that England didn't, despite being told by Newcastle what Callum's training regime was, didn't stick to it. And I can see that with England. I can see them not making that allowance for Callum Wilson. And I think that's knocked him back a bit because he's obviously a player who's I wouldn't say he's held together with masking tape, but because he's had so many injuries, you've obviously got to make sure he trains in the right way. I mean, you remember famously was it Paul McGrath, Ledley King? These guys never trained through the week, and they play on a Saturday and they get man of the match because they were so good. Wilson might have a certain element of that about him, and if England have worked him too hard and set him back, then he might not be the same Callum as he was, when he left for the World Cup. But I think with Isak coming back a bit fitter and a bit sharper, and he looks a bit better, doesn't he? Every single little cameo we've seen of him, he's looking a little bit better, isn't he? But we're going to get stuck into the lineup in a second, mate. But I think it's Isak time personally. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, and there's a comment in there from Tiger Studios again about do you think the lineup should change because it's becoming too predictable? I think there's possibly an elephant. An elephant?
Oh, elephant. Stop racing me to the button, you. You're faster than Chris Wood.
That's not saying an awful lot.
It's not hard, yeah. It's not hard.
I do think there's an element of that. I think teams have started to. It's certainly going forward, and I did almost question why Bruno played at the weekend as well, because I thought that was maybe a little bit too early for him. But the medical team and all that will know better.
Let's just get into it then, because this is playing right into it, mate, isn't it? Anyway, so
I think possibly, and I know you talked about before we came on. Do you change slightly? And I would probably do it tomorrow. I would go with Isak because I think he looks sharper. I think he's ready to start in that regard. I know you also suggested possibly playing Maxi as well from the start, and again, I think it comes back to that predictability. I think if you go into that side, into that game with St. Maximin, it's not an expected move, and it will put the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit, because I think they'll be fully expecting Willock and Joe Linton to be working down that left-hand side, and all of a sudden, if you throw Maxi into that mix, it puts them on the back foot a little bit. So I possibly would make a couple of changes for it just to.
Would you do what Ian's suggesting there? Would you put Isak in the 10 like he did against Fulham when he got the goal, or not? I would play him through the middle personally. I don't think the 10. I think the 10 role might waste him a bit. I would say it's Wilson or Isak, not both.
There's definitely a place for him. He's definitely good enough to do that. We saw against Fulham. He immediately started to play in that.
He changed the game when he come on. Absolutely, yeah. He gave you an outlet.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe I just think the formation and the way that Newcastle play is drilled in now, and I think to change that
3-3
without any real need to do it, I think possibly could backfire. And you know what would happen if they did change that and it was to go wrong, then the question would be, well, why have we changed? You kind of see
formation. Yeah.
I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll go with a settled 3 in midfield. I think it will be Joe, it will be Bruno, it will be Sean. It's that front line. I think that you could throw a couple of changes into that and put Isak in, or Isak and Maxi as well, and it just, and I guess that then pushes back their sort of driving force coming forward, because at the weekend I think it was Samuel Edozie looked quite dangerous getting forward, so it then pushes them back to it and takes away a little bit of what makes them tick. So it's something out of the ordinary, and it's not a usual thing, I think, for Eddie Howe, but I think it's one that definitely has legs.
Do you agree with Roger? Do you think Miggy's been found out? ASM was found out last year. Do you think that's a bit harsh from Roger, or do you think Miggy's been found out a bit? He has gone quiet a bit. He's not as big as he was.
He's still putting the work in. He's still getting into those 4 positions. I think he's he's almost that purple patch that he was in. That almost will give him the ball. He's just going to shoot and he'll score. That seems to have just died off a little bit. He doesn't look weirdly. He doesn't look like he's playing with the same confidence that he did if you go back to say the Villa game, the Leicester game on the return from the World Cup, where he strides through it and puts the ball in there. All of a sudden, that just seems to have dropped away.
Stopped a bit, Leicester were really bad that day. They left loads of space.
To be fair, it's not even as if teams have learned to kind of, just keep him down that right-hand side and sort of push him into the corner where we know he's next to useless with his right foot, bless him, but he's still cutting across. He's still getting into the positions in the middle of the park as he comes across. And there's almost a reluctance now to hit it. We saw that against Fulham, where he drove into the middle of the sort of the Fulham half with the goal right in front of him, and he chose to pass. And I almost think that he started to second guess himself instead of driving into the box and taking the shot on himself. He sort of got rid of the responsibility again, and it's such a strange thing because he's been in such good form. I do find it strange, but he's just gone off the boil a little bit, and maybe he's just a little bit. He needs to just take a little bit of a risk again. Just go, look how good you've been. Just hit one.
Yeah. Roger's agreeing with it. He thinks he's been harsh himself. Fair play, Roger. If Biggie's been forced out wide to prevent him getting on his left, but he is scared of his right, as Bobby said there before. I mean, Tiger's not happy. He says that the owners should have acted in the transfer market after the Wednesday game. I don't get why they're waiting for the last week. A bit of a panic buy. I think that they're looking for a little bit of a who blinks first. But I think somebody put a comment further about was missing out on is it Fresneda, the right back we did a rumour has it on. I think Arteta personally tried to schmooze him, but from what I gather, and I think Craig Hope said this as well, that we would probably go back in for Harrison Ashby from West Ham. And I've seen some clips of the lad. Yes, it's the kind of under 23 league or whatever, but he looks very Trippier-esque. He gets up and down that line. Well, he's got a great cross on him. He's good from dead ball situations, and he's so young. And I think that he might be somebody who can come in, not expect to play, a lot of games, learn from Trippier week in, week out, day in, day out, and train, and eventually step in and be the Trippier replacement, and then we don't have to change the style of the way we play. So I think that might be a plan on the right back situation. But I do agree with Tiger, Mark, in terms of key areas. Midfield, I know John Joe Shelby's meant to be 3 weeks away, but I still don't think he's got the legs to keep up in this side. I think that's why his body keeps breaking down. And in attack, letting Wood go without a replacement is a little bit silly. As shit as Wood was, when you've got those two up front that, let's face it, haven't got the best injury record ever.
No, that's very true. I do think that Wood's been allowed to go because somebody is on their way. I don't think you will see the rest of the season with just Isak and just Wilson. I think if you're getting the Brazilian kid in, potentially, I know there's wranglings about how much they're going to pay from. I think the latest was that Flamengo wanted an extra 4 million euros or something. So
for the Brazilian boy,
20 million euros or something like that. Everything suggests that that's a snip, and he will be another one of those that comes out and does very, very well in Europe. It's a risk. I get that, but he's young. He's 18. He's going to learn an awful lot. And he will definitely thrive under Eddie Howe. And I think you've then got somebody in that. We'll go back to last summer where you thought, well, if you can get somebody like Ekatike that comes in and plays in behind Wilson in the squad, learns from him, learns from Howe, and then takes it on. I think that also fits that bill. You've got somebody in that young bracket that comes in and got plenty of room to grow. He's already scoring goals at quite a rate this last season in particular, and has been labelled as, I think somebody labelled him as the new Pele. That was a Flamengo fan. So that's an unbelievable thing to say about a player, I guess. But we'll see. I think he's possibly now the most likely to come in that area. I don't think there's anybody else that really really will come in as a striking option there. You might get a wide play, but I think he's the most natural one or the most likely one to come in.
Yeah, well, I've got a bit of a theory on this. Just reading Bobby's comment. You're right, Bobby. Me and Mark did cover this in a previous episode that Isaac barely got injured when he was at Sociedad.
Yeah.
This one just seems to be a bit of a freak one. So I hope you're right, Bobby. I hope this is him fit for a long period of time, because he could really be the focal point of this side. But yeah, my theory on the Chris Wood one, Mark, might be this. I mean, if a player like Gordon is someone that Howe fancies and Ashworth fancies, and we can get him in, someone who can play in that kind of attacking three, can play in midfield with legs as well, or whether they get, a midfielder in, be it a Conor Gallagher, Ziyech, Tillemans, whoever, for a good fee. They might very well consider using Joe as the other option for a striker. Now, we all know Joe Linton ain't great up front, but he could do you till the end of the season to fill in if anything happened to Wilson or Isaac. Joe could play through the middle, and then you could surround him with some of the other players, and maybe they go big for a third striker in the summer, potentially. That might be in the thought process.
I guess it's a good point. You don't want to rely on Joe Linton up there. He's not your natural finisher, is he? But
no, he's not.
No. He will do a job. We've seen he can do it up there, and I guess in this team, he'd probably do a lot better job than he would have done under previous manager.
Oh yes. Yes.
So yeah, I think there's an element of that. The trouble with that is you then lose him in that midfield, and in games where you want him to battle, where you want to do what they've done in previous games, where you can switch between Willock and Joe Linton on that left side of the midfield three and the left side of the forward three. You want the ability to do that. Now, if you play him through the middle, you play him up front in that middle role, you lose the ability to do that, because then, unless you've got somebody else to come in and play in that place. But it's definitely an option. He is good enough to do it and do a serviceable role. And Ian, you are absolutely right. He would be much better than Chris Wood up there.
100%. Tommy's making a good point about Isaac and defenders at target. We were at the Fulham game, and there was one when he got leveled. He got booted about 4 foot in the air, didn't he? Did Isaac? He's built a bit like a dino rod, isn't he? He's a bit of a slight lad, isn't he? To be fair, but he got up and dusted himself down and cracked on. So I think maybe we'll see Isaac.
Unlike Maxi did right towards the end, who just that was honestly.
Yeah.
He took a hell. To be fair, he took an absolute kicking at that point, but with only a couple of minutes to go, when you need a goal, you've got to just get up. And I know that then led to the goal, didn't it? But you've got to get up. You've got to just put that behind you. Just the free kick's not been given. Get up and get on with it.
Yeah, you're right. And Tiger's not happy again. He's saying that Chelsea about to do a last minute deal for Enzo. That would think that was always going to be in the cards. How does FFP apply only to us? We had this conversation before, and I think when we did the finance show, and Adam did it with was it Kieran? Was Kieran Maguire? Was Kieran Maguire?
Yes,
I remember his name. Yes, of course it was. Apologies, Kieran. I nearly called you Kevin Maguire there or something. So I think that's me watching Good Morning Britain too much in the morning. So I think with that one, because of the nature of our owners in the kind of the microscope that they're under, by being who they are, I think the club are so cautious about the FFP. I think if we finish top 4 this season, I think we'll throw a fuck ton of money at it in the summer. And I think that's why they're trying to scale back a bit on who they're buying now. But I do agree with some of Tiger's comments, Mark, that there's some good players this window that could massively improve. Never mind the squad, the first team. And I just think if we drag on a little bit too much, it might be a case of we get to the last few days of the window and we're fucked, and it might be a panic buy, which Chris Wood was, let's be honest with you, was a panic buy. And we don't want to be down that route again, do we?
No, not at all. I think going back to that Chelsea thing, I think Chelsea have exploited a loophole in FFP really,
stretching
really
the term
well
out
for them.
That's getting closed, apparently. You
went for a looking to close that, but they've basically just gone on. Well, Mudrik's on an 8.5-year contract. Badiashile is on a 7.5-year contract, and it's just sensible from them to tie the young players down for that length of time. It guarantees gets money coming in later. It's a big risk if these players get injured, or they don't perform,
flop. Yeah, no one's going to buy the contract.
A lot of money on them, so it is a risk in that regards. But if they come off, it works. But if UEFA close that loophole, then they really have to. maximum term contracts and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, as Roger says there, they're on 29 points. The new FA rules, 8-year contracts and no Champions League, they'll be fucked. Absolutely, Roger. I really hope they are. That'll be so good on it. There's no magic trick in the world, Potter can perform and get rid of that, mate. Toon Leroy's back in the comments. Been a while since we see you, mate. Hope you're well. May as well wait until the summer to sign Franca because he won't get clearance due to his lack of involvement. I heard about this. So work permits he's going to struggle with unless he's got a Portuguese passport, which I'm not sure he has. So even if we sign Frank, I don't think he'll be one for the first team. He'll be one for the future. And he might turn out to be an absolute superstar in all fairness. But yeah, that's not going to be something that changes the squad right now. I just think, I mean, unless the club are just completely keeping us guessing, obviously we're not ITKs here, we don't do that bollocks. But if there's a massive deal to be had, just towards the end of the window. I mean, Maddison came back for Leicester, didn't he, the other day, come off the bench. He played for them. Yeah. Tillemans is still there. Nobody's moving for him. So, I mean, there might be a couple of big deals to be done, Mark, towards the back end of the window, maybe the last week, and that's what the club are waiting for. Do you think, mate?
Possibly. You said it a few weeks ago, though. I think Tillemans has potentially got his move.
Yeah, it was Carla said that. Yeah, it was Carla said that.
Was it Carl? Yeah. So I think it's there, ready to go. It'll get announced. He'll be off to somewhere in Europe.
Barcelona or Inter Milan or some shit like that, yeah.
He's not be going to Juventus. That's one. That's definitely for sure.
Well, they've got players as well we could take advantage of,
Well, this is it.
Guys like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Rabiot.
There's going to be a few that they're going to miss out on European football potentially, or definitely for Champions League football that will want to move on, and they're a bit of a shit mess at the moment too. So, but yeah, I think Tillemans probably moves on into Europe. I don't think it's panic buying. I just think that they're playing it very sensibly. They're not going to overpay. They're not going to get dragged into stuff where they don't need to get dragged into bidding wars. It's trust in the process, isn't it? It's trust in the manager and it's trust in the likes of Ashworth to get the deals done and the deals done right. And it's difficult. We always like to have our say on these ones, but it comes down to who does Eddie want? Who do the club want? Who have they identified to come in and fill those roles in the squad and in the first team and stuff? And are they achievable? So it's me just totally sitting on the fence with that. I guess but it's just I don't think they'll go into a Chris Wood situation and panic buy. I don't think they do that again and go and spend 25 million on a player. I do think there's an element of tacticalness with that signing. Yes, absolutely. Cat behaviour. Totally.
Yeah, I thought it was like stat source. You just spray over it. 90th percentile stat source. 99.9 percentile clearing back to your away, mate. But no, that's an interesting comment there. Just Gil was saying, be interesting. The deadline day is on the same day as the second leg. Now we're at home. If we sign a player, you can parade him in front of the crowd with a flag and the scarf and all that. So that could be something there, mate. Could be something there.
That ramps the atmosphere up another notch. I mean, it's going to be incredible anyway, but can you imagine a big-ish name or big name player coming in and being paraded in front of the crowd? The difficulty with that is it's sometimes a distraction.
Possibly, but it depends who the player is, though, doesn't it? It depends, you know what I mean? It's, I suppose, if it was Maddison, is Maddison cup tied? Did he play in the early rounds?
Yeah, he would have
done. The Carabao Cup, he would have done. Yeah, Tillemans is definitely cup tied. But yeah, it'd be interesting. You never know. Maybe, I know they said Thuram wasn't interested in coming, but somebody like Marcus Thuram, do you know what I mean? Could easily come in and play, even in the final, I suppose, mate. But yes, very, very interesting. But I think that's us pretty much wrapping up then, Mark, this week. Just before we shoot off, predictions, mate, for tomorrow. We're going to be back, hopefully, with a live post-match reaction. But what do you think tomorrow, mate? What's your gut feeling?
See, I've gone quite comfortable wins the last few games and have been totally, totally wrong. I think it's going to be tight. I do think Southampton will try and get something out of the game, even if it is a draw. Yeah. That I think Newcastle's best hope is to do exactly what they did to Leicester, is play on the front foot from the off, get in front, and then just utilize that defense to. I sound like I'm talking about the NFL. Get in front and use the defense to hold them off. And if you can take a 1-0 or a 2-0 win into the second leg, I think that's almost game over. That's maybe been really harsh on Southampton, who do have some good players. But yeah, I think I'm going to go 2-1. I do think Southampton will score.
Newcastle?
I think Newcastle win 2-1. I've sneaky feeling that James Ward-Prowse free kick will crop up at some point.
I was just going to say,
Nick Pope is.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's very, very good at free kicks. So I think 2-1 win. Take it into the second leg and that atmosphere then takes them over the line next week.
Yeah, we had a few wins in there and a draw as well. Do you know what I'm actually feeling? Oh God, what am I thinking? Yeah, I'm going to back you there. I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I think we'll maybe have enough to get the win down there, take it back to St James's, and we should really bash it from there, really, and get through to the first final. We have done, in fucking, God knows how long since the 70s, really. But really looking forward to the game, as always, mates. That's a great way to wrap up. So thank you so much to everybody who's been in the comments tonight. We always love the comments. It really helps what's going on flow. Thank you so much to everybody who's got involved. And if you're just checking us out for the first time, feel free to click the subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. Help push us over that 2,400. Loads of room for you here. We've got a cracking little community, as you can see in the comments, and you're more than welcome here. So this is me and Mark signing off. We'll hopefully be back tomorrow night, Mark, for post-match. You think?
Yes, I think we'll definitely have something on post-match tomorrow night. I think that's a given, really, isn't it? There'll be plenty to talk about.
And then Mark is back in the hosting chair chair on Wednesday because I'm buggering off for a little work trip. So Mark will be in the seat hosting, being professional, way more professional than I am, not slagging off the Pope or anybody else. So make sure you tune in for that as well on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, guys. But that's it from us. Have a cracking evening, whatever you're doing, and we'll catch you tomorrow, hopefully.
Take care, guys. See ya.
Cheers now.